Hey guys, welcome to the Q with Q. It is me, your host, Quentin R. Giles, or just Q. And I mean, so much has happened since the last time I've talked to you all. But let's talk about the biggest pressing thing that's going on right now. President Trump and the COVID. Now, this has been a wild 48 hours since we have learned this news. Not only this week did we have the presidential debates, which I think most of us still have a headache from. Now we get this news at the end of the week, and I've had so many emotions. I've had so many thoughts. I've seen so many comments that have really hurt my heart, to be quite honest. It's just a lot. It's always so much with this man, but it's just a lot. Like I really am ready for him to get out of office because I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. Like I'm trapped in an abusive relationship. But let's talk about the COVID. Let's talk about the week. Let's talk about the timeline and everything, because my position has changed a few times. When we first learned this news, what day was it even? For some of us, it was Thursday night, depending on your time zone. Some of us, it was Friday early morning, because I think the news broke at 1 a.m. East Coast. So just depending on where you are. And I know for me, like I was laying down, which was rare anyway. Typically, I am up until about 1:30 a.m., 2 o'clock in the morning. And okay, judge me not, I watch cartoons. I decompress, I watch cartoons. Not Nick at Night, they do a throwback to Nickelodeon, the old school cartoons. Doug, Hey Arnold, like I watch that at the end of the night. But for whatever reason, Thursday night, I was like, you know what, let me just cut the TV off. And I was laying on my couch. I had just finished reading my Bible, and it was about 10:30, and I was just laying, looking at the wall, thinking about stuff. And then my phone is buzzing, but I'm in GroupMe chat. So it was like those short burst buzzes. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just look at it later. But then my phone started buzzing like a text message buzz. And I don't have anybody texting me like that late at night because I be decompressing. So when my phone got the buzzing text message style, I was like, now wait a minute, what is going on? And the message I see is from my mom. I've told you all before, my mom is politically astute, even though she won't say anything publicly because she works for the government in some capacity. So all her political commentary just be between me and her. And maybe one day when she retires, I'll get her on the show or get her talking. But she says she can't talk right now. So she texts me that Trump has the COVID. So I'm like, what? So I cut the TV on. I'm watching the news coverage. I'm like, okay, this would happen today. I decide I'm going to lay down a little earlier, get me some mental rest and all of that good jazz. And this man has the COVID. Now, immediately, Twitter is such a dangerous place because I already knew the things that were going to be said when I opened Twitter after I learned the news were just, I knew it was going to be a wide range of thought, whether there be people praying for the president, people praying against the president, people saying this is what he deserves, people coming up with conspiracy theories saying that the Democrats gave it to him. I knew it was going to be all of that, and it was all of that. Like, it was definitely all of that. And I just want to be clear where I stand on the issue. I don't advocate for the harm of anyone. And so I do pray that the president gets better, all those affected get better, and I pray that their hearts are changed, that they stop ignoring or acting like this thing is not a thing and do right by the American people. We have more than 200,000 Americans that have died due to this virus, and I would say due to a lack of leadership and due to a lack of denial and a lack of planning and strategizing. So now that he has it, I do want him to get better because he's still in a position of power. He is still in a position, even after the election, we still voted him out, but even after the election, he still has a few months in his term. There are still things that he could do to stop or to blunt continued death and harm to Americans. So that is my prayer, that he not only gets better, but it also changes his heart to do right by the people. Because whether we want him or not, he is the leader, and we need the leader to do right by us. Now, my heart was grieved when I saw people saying, I hope he dies and all this other stuff. Like, I don't advocate for any of that. I just think those things that's just way too far, way too far. Even I feel like a lot of times, some of us that say, we care about the sanctity of life, we don't expand that to everyone, even when it comes to children in the womb and abortion. Some of us being very much wanting every child to be born, like myself, and understanding that people will make their own choices. You have to want every child to be born, but you also have to look at people who have the death penalty as well, right? That's how I look at it. Like, I don't subscribe to the death penalty. I don't subscribe to people being disenfranchised and their lives being distraught by climate change in low-income neighborhoods because plants are put there. I'm not subscribing to people being slain down in the street by police. Like, I view every life as precious. And so even with all the stuff that I don't like about Trump, and I definitely am not voting for him, and I definitely am voting him out, I still don't subscribe to the fact that I want him to die or that I want, harm on him. I don't like that. I don't like that. And I think we got to check ourselves and not become the thing that we are fighting against. I think that that's just a real thing. We need to check ourselves and not become the thing that we're fighting against. So now put that there. That's out there. My mind has also changed on the validity of his diagnosis. Like last night, my mind has really gone back and forth because I was like, okay, when they came out and told us, he had gotten this experimental treatment for the COVID, I was like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, he got that. And then, short time after, he got the remdesivir because he left the White House and went to Walter Reed. So I'm like, okay, y'all, this is a real thing. Well, last night, I got an alert that Kellyanne Conway got tested positive for COVID. And I'm not going to lie, when that alert came through, I was like, hold on. Are y'all lying? Because, none of them in this White House are forthcoming. And I felt like we just kept getting dropped like, oh, Trump and Melania are positive. His campaign manager is positive. 2 senators are positive. Kellyanne Conway is positive. And I'm like, okay, y'all are being way too forthcoming. And I'm uncomfortable now because that's not how y'all operate. So I'm not gonna lie, even last night, I started to doubt whether Trump had the virus or not. And I started to think about, like, is this just a ploy to, like, get your headlines out of the news? Because the day the COVID broke, we were still talking about his nod to white supremacy, which we're not gonna back off of. And then there were leaked tapes of Melania Trump from her ex-friend, talking about how she didn't care and how she had to do the Christmas decorations. And this is, I won't use the expletives that she used, but that it was basically a waste of time. Like these bunch of tapes that was really going to take a stab at the image of Melania, right? Because so many people think that she is of the resistance and is somehow trapped. But her friend Stephanie Wilkoff has been releasing tapes, and it's like, you can really tell, no, she's actually one of them. And she knows that that we have this image of her and she wants to keep it that way. But when you hear her talk about things, she's one of them. She's one of the Trumps. She is one of them. Sis is not a part of the resistance. I do not feel bad for her. She's not stuck. She is actively participating. So I started to think about, like, all these stories were coming up. Was this a ploy? And then I started to feel bad about even thinking that. But then I had to realize, like, I shouldn't feel bad about thinking that. I didn't create the environment of mistrust. Trump did. Trump lies all the time. Trump is the master con man. Trump schemes and plots and all these things. So rightly so. People that have skepticism, I confer with that. I have skepticism, or I had skepticism last night as well. Started to think about, okay, is this really a real thing? Or is this a thing to, like, take all those stories out of the news cycle? Also, that means if you are down for the count for 2 weeks, you don't have to debate Joe Biden again because your debate performance was terrible. Then are you going to pop out like nowhere like, oh, the remdesivir cured me, look, I'm strong? Like, those are real things that I think a lot of people were thinking about, but I think a lot of people weren't saying publicly because it sounded bad. But Trump created this environment of mistrust. So it is what it is. It is what it is. You have lied to me for like the past 4 to 5 years. Well, we'll just say 4 in your presidency. So you've created the mistrust. So that's where I was at with it last night. And then today we get the press conference from his doctors in which I have more questions, and we get the timeline of treatment. So we found out Thursday, but the doctor said he had been treated for 72 hours, which means they would have started treatment Wednesday. And if that's the case, Trump would have, on Wednesday, he was still campaigning. Like, he still went to 2 other states and had a fundraiser and all this other stuff. So that means you had a confirmed diagnosis and you were still campaigning. So I left with more questions. I have more questions after the press conference than I did prior to. Even with the question of, is he requiring oxygen? Because a lot of the doctors are saying, the remdesivir is used when people have like severe symptoms, and it would be normal if he was requiring oxygen and they gave him, the remdesivir IV infusion. But the doctors today were they were they were trying to sidestep the question. Like, the reporters kept saying, has the president been on oxygen? He's not on oxygen today. Okay, that's today. Has he been on oxygen, period? Well, he was up walking around. He's not on oxygen today. Okay, so now are we to infer that he was on oxygen either yesterday, last night? Because yesterday we saw him walk from the White House to Marine 1 to go to Walter Reed. So are you insinuating that he was on oxygen last night? Is that why y'all gave the remdesivir? Like, you're being cagey with your responses, which is creating more questions. So now I'm in the space of like, okay, maybe this is real. Maybe he's not lying. Maybe he does have it. And now the timeline seems off because y'all are saying you've been treating him for 72 hours. Then when did he get the actual diagnosis? And so if he got the diagnosis Wednesday or even before that, because what we also now know is, Tuesday was the debate. Chris Wallace himself said that Trump and his campaign and the family showed up in the evening and didn't have time, didn't get a test that day. They were supposed to operate on an honor system. Now, why we would ever trust them to operate on an honor system, don't know. But they were supposed to operate on an honor system. And so it has me questioning, why didn't you show up early enough to get tested like everybody else did on Tuesday prior to the debate? Were you infectious that day? Had you already, received a diagnosis that day or even before that? Like, there's so many questions. And if you did, like, even on the debate stage, you taunted Joe Biden about wearing a mask. But wearing a mask is one of the things, per the CDC director, that will help us stop the virus, which is more effective than a potential vaccine right now. So I just have so many questions about it. I am leaning on the side that I do think that this is true. I think my skepticism is subsiding about whether he has it or not. Now I'm skeptical. Yes, now I'm skeptical. Now I'm skeptical about the timeline. When did you get diagnosed? When did you know? That's what we need to know. And is the president on oxygen? What else is going on? Is he worse than what you're telling us? Because what we also know is, even though we saw him walking from the White House to Marine 1 to go to Walter Reed, we know that with COVID, like, some people, like, they do fine one day and then they completely bottom out, the next day. So what happened last night that you won't tell us whether he was on oxygen or not to get you to remdesivir? And then even this experimental treatment, which is like, why are we giving the president of the United States, whether it's Trump or not, why are we giving the president of the United States an experimental treatment? We need to know, like, what if that thing have adverse effects? We need to know that thing works before you just pop it in the president, right? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. These are just things a layperson is asking. So it's just a lot going on right now. Pence is still campaigning per all reports. The VP debate is still going on, which, I want to see that anyway. But then it does beg the question, like, if the president is in the hospital sick, should you really be campaigning? Should that really happen? But maybe they can do it safely. I know the Biden campaign has asked that Kamala and Pence, that they set up the stage in a manner to which they are 12 feet away from each other. So we'll see if that happens. Side note, I will be doing another debate watch party for the Kamala and Pence debate if it happens. Thank you for everyone who tuned in to the first presidential debate, even though it was all that yelling. But I'll be releasing that soon. I'm going to wait until we confirm. I probably won't release the registration until like Sunday night, Monday, when we're right up on it. So I know for sure, like, we're doing it. But that is scheduled to still happen. Bless them, Lord. Somebody is driving crazy on this freeway. Side note, I'm recording a podcast in my car while I'm driving. I'm headed to Best Buy and then to Walmart and potentially the gym with my mask on. But those things are scheduled to happen. So I will keep my eye out on it. It's just a lot right now. People, please wear a mask. Please social distance. And just take care of yourself, because this is just a mess. But I do hope as well, before I close, that with Trump being positive for COVID, that his supporters who have refused to wear a mask see that this is a real thing, and that they wear one. That they, like, if the most protected man in America, with the Secret Service and all this other stuff, can get it, and clearly it looks like a cluster in his orbit, like all these people are getting it that's around him, then anybody can. So please wear a mask, social distance when you can, wash your hands, and just be safe, y'all. Until next time, this is The Q with me, your host, Quentin R. Giles. But we friends, so y'all can just call me Q. I always want to say see you next time. Talk to y'all later.